Hi everyone, it's me, Logan Quinn. As you can tell by the title, I am reading a story which I had wrote in 9th grade, and I had posted it on Facebook in 9th grade. And this story is about a guy that I had a crush on. The stuff that happened in this story never actually happened in real life, but I had wished they would have. And I changed the names when I posted it on Facebook in order to stop people from knowing who the story was about, and I will never say his name. So let's get started. I watched as Adrian walked away. The paper he gave me in my left hand looked like it had just been torn from a notebook. I suddenly remembered seeing him writing in his notebook during science. This couldn't be what he was writing in science, could it? I asked myself. What does he want? Puzzled, I put Adrian's note in my binder and headed to lunch. The lunchroom was bustling with activity. People shouting, eating, walking to the lunch line, doing homework, etc. I walked over to my usual seat next to Brooke, sat down, and tried to take my mind off of Adrian. What does Napoleon do when he is alone? My other friend Amore was saying. She had just moved here from France a week after school had started. I tapped Brooke on the shoulder. Brooke? Yeah, what's up? She asked as she turned her head to look at me. I looked up at the ceiling. White ceiling panels, lights, and metal. Oh, and probably some wires also. I laughed. Brooke and I normally said this when someone said what's up. Nothing really. Just, have you ever had a crush on a guy? Yep, she replied, nodding her head. I have. Well, had you ever thought that maybe they had a crush on you? She replied, doing a sort of hand gesture. I never gave it much thought. Oh, I said simply. Why? Just curious. A few minutes later, I went into the gym, which you go in and play games in when you were done eating, and sat down on the bleachers and took out Adrian's note. It read, "Meet me in the gym locker room after school. Adrian." I put the note back away. Maybe Lance is right. Maybe Adrian is gay, I thought to myself. He's gotta be. I mean, come on. Lance caught him checking out some guy's ass. How many straight guys stare at another guy's ass? I rambled on to myself. Beep. The bell to go to the next period rang. As I was walking to study hall, I was hoping I'd run into Adrian, but he was nowhere to be seen, not even at his locker. Frustrated, I kept walking to Mr. Billiard's classroom. Throughout the rest of the day, I thought of Adrian. I started to draw him in my notebook during English, while Mrs. Marone lectured about commas and semicolons. After 9th period, the last period of the day, I made my way to the gym. I walked into the gym and went into the boys' locker room. I found Adrian sitting on one of the benches in the middle of the room with his back to me. I automatically became all nervous. What the fuck am I doing? I asked myself. Adrian turned to look at me. He got up and walked over to me. My heart was racing as he stopped and stood in front of me. He was wearing his white graphic t-shirt and white sweatpants. Adrian was big when it came to sport. He was on the football team, the swim team, and I think he also lifted weights because it showed through in his muscular arms, abs, legs, etc. Adrian's hair was a dark brown and wicked shiny. Even though he was a few inches taller than I was, I felt puny with him standing right in front of me, looking down at me. Adrian chuckled. "You're short," he exclaimed. If it was humanly possible, my heart would be jumping out of my chest. "What did you want?" I managed to say. "I wanted to talk to you," he replied. "Come with me." He walked behind me and opened the door to the gym teacher's office. No one was inside and the lights were off. I stared at Adrian. "Mr. Emerson will be back in about half an hour," he replied when he looked at my expression. I walked in and Adrian followed, closing the door behind him. It was pitch black inside. Oh shit, I thought as I heard Adrian lock the door. "You're so fucking stupid, Jared," I told myself as I began to panic, thinking that he was going to beat me up. A light flashed on from underneath us, and it was coming from a flashlight Adrian was holding. I stared up at his face as he stared down at me. After quite a few minutes of us just looking at each other, Adrian broke the silence. "Do you like me?" he asked me. "No," I lied. I knew just by looking at his face that he didn't buy it. "I'm not stupid. I can tell just by the way you act around me," he said. "I know you're lying. I knew I was stuck in a hot spot and there was no way out, but I really didn't want to tell him. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about." Adrian still had disbelief in his eyes and now frustration. "I'm not fucking stupid," he said with a higher, more venomous tone to his voice. He advanced upon me as I started to back away slowly. "I'm sorry," I squeaked. "I don't want apologies. I want the truth." "Can't you settle with not knowing?" He stared hard at me. "No," he hissed through his teeth. I sighed. "Fine, Adrian." I took a deep breath. "Okay, Adrian, you're right. I do like you." I looked down, squeezed my eyes shut, and waited for him to punch me. The blow didn't come, so I opened my eyes and looked back up at him. He was still staring at me, but the expression on his face was a lot less tense. "You probably think that I'm going to punch you," he guessed. I nodded. "Yes." "I'm not." I sighed with relief. "Thank God," I said. Adrian then did something I never thought he'd do. He hugged me. His arms held me close to him. I let my head rest on his chest, and I could hear his heart beating almost as fast as mine. I could smell the sexy musk of his body spray, which caused my hormones to jump. "I like you too, Jared," he told me. "I'm sorry for scaring you." I looked into his eyes, and he looked into mine. His pupils, surrounded by the hazel iris of his eyes, were deep and large. "Mr. Emerson will be back in a bit, and the football team will be here soon to get ready for practice." Adrian spoke after a few minutes. "Yeah," I replied as I looked away disappointed. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay here in Adrian's arms. Adrian put his hand under my chin and made me look up at him again. "But before you go," he said before bowing his head down and lifting his chin up slightly. My heart was going crazy as I felt Adrian's lips touch mine. His hand slid down my back and stopped at my buttocks, and I grabbed the back of his head and pulled him closer to me. He separated my lips with his tongue and began to explore my mouth, and I began to explore his. His breath was warm and fruity, as if he had just drank Powerade. His tongue moved around as if he couldn't get enough. After minutes of kissing, we unlocked our lips. "Whoa," is all I could say. Adrian smiled and sighed. "Whoa is right," he said. "To think I've been missing out on all this." "You mean you've never kissed a guy before?" "No." "You're kidding." Adrian looked down. "No." We were both silent for minutes upon minutes. Adrian sighed. "You better go. I've got to get ready before the team gets here." This was always the hard part. Leaving after kissing a guy. Of course, I always have the happy feeling you get from kissing someone you're attracted to. But after a few hours, it turns into sorrow or even depression until you see that person again. I'm sure I'd become really sad. Adrian was right, though. Adrian hugged me very tightly. "Want to meet me here tomorrow after school again?" he asked me. "I can't. I can only stay after on Wednesdays." "Next Wednesday, then?" "Sure," I replied. If I'm not able to stay Wednesday, though, I'll let you know." "Okay, but tell me on MySpace. I don't want anyone starting up shit." And that is the end of the story. So yeah. Obviously, my writing skills have actually increased since this. I didn't revise or anything. But yeah. Tell me what you think about it. And all that stuff. Leave comments, feedback, and all that stuff down below in the comment section. And yeah. comment, subscribe, whatever. Until next time.